to Equal Time Soccer. I'm Matt Pravratsky alongside Olivia Graupmann, Alex Balfour, two stars of the St. Thomas freshly D1. Like you guys are living the dream this fall of that huge jump from D3 to D1, the only program in the history of American college soccer to make this jump. And so we are going to dig into it. But first, thank you so much for both of you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
All right, so let's start at the very beginning. Let's go all the way back. And Alex, let's have this one go to you first. When you were first getting recruited to St. Thomas, talk about what that was like when you were all the way back, whatever year in high school that was, when you were first considering St. Thomas. What were those conversations like? Because I think your experience and Olivia's will be different, right? Because you were probably fully pre the D1 conversation, right?
Yeah, completely.
Right.
No, yeah, I started talking to St. Thomas just like right before my senior year because I hadn't decided what I wanted to do. And honestly, like the D3 was like she's a big seller too. I just, the balance that comes with D3, everything. And I love Sheila and I love the coaching staff and just thought it was a really cool campus. So I didn't tour until late summer going into my senior year. And when I did, I was like, oh, wow, okay, this is where I want to go. So it was just a great choice for me after looking at so many different types of schools at so many different types of levels. It just all came together at the end.
Well, and you being you are like an entire category of players like you exist on this current roster where you played multiple years in the MIAC. You guys were balling out in the MIAC. You were like, an All-American. You did all of this full experience. And then when for you all did you actually start hearing, other than just like rumor and murmur, but like when did the conversation start happening about, oh, wait, we might be D1? Like when did that start happening? When did you first start hearing about that?
Right. I think the conversation first started happening after my freshman year, once we had finished the NCAAs and everything. And I was like, oh my gosh. And at the time I was like, well, senior year, that's far away from now. We'll deal with that when it comes. But then everything started getting more and more solidified, probably, by the end of my sophomore year. Is when we knew for sure. And I think honestly everyone was cool. The first school to ever do this. Like I think once it started getting put in the air, we had a feeling that that's probably what was going to happen. Putting D2 or just like chin conferences. So I think we all knew it was coming, but to hear that it was actually happening was pretty crazy. But then again, I was still like, oh my gosh, 2 years from now, and now it's here, which is just kind of crazy.
Honestly, I can't even imagine the vibe of that. I mean, I played in the UMAC, I went to Morris. It's like, I can't imagine if that conversation even started happening. Like you go to this D3 school and they're like, by the way, we might be D1. It's like, what? Like that's so foreign to, like you said, part of recruiting, especially in women's soccer, there are so many programs at every level. Like there are so many D1 programs, so many D2 programs. So there's not that many accidental fits of players because so many programs exist that like they recruit people and whatever. So part of going D3, like you said, Alex, it was on purpose. It's like, I want to have the balance of like school and athletics and all these things. So it's like, there's a reason that jump doesn't normally happen. But Olivia, I have to imagine it was a little different for you, right? Because you're a sophomore this year. So your freshman year was that glamorous middle of a global pandemic, of which we are still in, by the way. But that freshman year was super bonkers. You get on campus, delay till spring, then there's sort of not a season, and then you wait till this fall. But for you, when did you first start talking to St. Thomas, and was D1 sort of always in the ether in those conversations?
I think St. Thomas was always on my radar just because I have family who've been here, and so I live nearby, so it was always something in the back of my mind, but I didn't seriously consider it until pretty far along in my like college looking at schools process. So I went all over and I looked at a ton of schools, and it ended up coming down to a couple of schools in the Twin Cities. And I'm so glad it did, and it worked out. It worked so well, especially being close to home during a global pandemic.
Yeah.
I love the school, and it was great to be able to be on campus last fall because I can't say the same for a lot of my friends.
Right.
And we got to play. So on top of that, it really worked out super well.
Well, and when you were having those first conversations, like maybe the first time you ever spoke with Sheila, you know, the first time you ever spoke with anyone associated with the program, was it already known by that point that the D1 jump was happening, or had you had conversations with them when they were still in that sort of we can't say, and so we're kind of a D3 program where there's whispers that we might not be? So what was the vibe of where were they at in that transition, like the first time you spoke with them?
At the first time I spoke to Sheila, I don't think it was on the radar. At least for me, they might have known stuff that I didn't know. And then eventually more and more rumors came out. And then for a while we knew, when I decided I was going to St. Thomas, I knew that something was happening.
Right.
But I did not know that we were going D1. And then I think, because even going into my freshman year, like I knew that we were going D1, but I still kind of had it in my mind of like, you still have a D3 season ahead of you. Like there's a ton of growth coming into this, and it will be a transition period, but it felt weird to be like, I'm playing D1 at St. Thomas before I was even at the school. I've had super supportive friends and family and coaches who are like, Hoji's playing D1 soccer at St. Thomas, but part of me is like, not there yet, but we will. We'll get there soon enough. So it's fun to be in it finally.
Right. Well, then I think both of you have it seems like a pretty healthy relationship with like the sport, and it's not like soccer or die or some crazy, you know, that it wasn't necessarily maybe the only deciding factor of sort of where you went to school. But for you both, when did you first know, and we can go back to Alex, when did you first know that you might want to play soccer in college?
Yeah, I was really unsure in high school. I played on a really competitive club, like a lot of us did, and a lot of girls were committing by their mid-sophomore, end of sophomore year. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I have literally no idea if I want to play, if I wanted to play, like where I would want to play. I was looking at schools like everywhere. So that whole process was it was honestly so up in the air for such a long time. And it really just depended on if I could find a school that had the balance that I wanted, which was, like I said, why I ended up landing on St. Thomas. But I mean, yeah, I really didn't know. And so I think that's similar to a lot of girls here, where they just wanted to really start loving the sport again and saw St. Thomas as an opportunity to really just start loving and having fun, but still playing really competitively.
Right. Olivia, how about you? When did you first sort of think about like, yeah, I could play in college?
Yeah, I grew up playing competitive soccer, so it was always kind of something in my mind. And like Al, I saw girls with either on my team or on teams that I'm close with who were starting to commit to these big schools. And I kind of realized, I mean, I always jumped through the hoops and sent emails out to coaches for all the showcases. Like I did the work, whether it was for like Princeton or whatever, whether I think I could get there or not. But I looked at schools for soccer, and I looked for schools just for academics. And I ended up narrowing a lot of the schools down, being ones that I thought I could play soccer at. And part of that was because I realized, like, if I can't, first it's a reason to narrow down schools. So many schools out there, and that was a tricky process. But also, I love the sport, and I realized, like through high school, that like I still have so much to learn through this process, and I don't think I've like hit my peak. And since I love it and I love doing it, brings me a lot of fulfillment. I might as well keep at it, find a school that I can do both at.
Yeah, I can't, by the way, I can't imagine going through like even a non-soccer related, like a rigorous college selection process. I can't relate to that. Like I was such a like slacker about it, like chose a school based on such silly reasons and really lucked out in finding a perfect match. But it's like, I think it was Ansley Ankinson that we had an ad on a show earlier this fall. And she said when she was a sophomore, her mom made her do a detailed breakdown of 20 different schools. And I like just hearing her say it stressed me out. Like I was so I was like, oh my God, I'm like having secondary stress for something you did like 10 years ago. Like somehow I'm having feelings about this. Olivia, one other thing
I played with Ansley. That's funny. Sorry. So I can completely 110% picture that.
I think it is funny you both mentioned like you both played at really legit clubs. And so I remember Alex, you and I were chatting on the phone. I think I was at a random wedding and I got out of the reception to talk to you on the phone earlier this year. It's this really funny thing where all of you have all these former teammates playing at these different levels. And so it's like, well, we all were at this level together. Like we all know we could hang. And it's just people filter to what they want to do. You know, it's just this funny thing of, like we mentioned, there's so many women's college programs that you really can find, if you want to, you can find the fit that sort of fits you. But it's just so, it's like in men's college soccer that doesn't exist. Like there's not a big ecosystem. It's really weird. There's hardly any D2, there's hardly any D1, whatever. So Olivia, one thing I'm super curious about, because I watched a number of your early exhibitions. I've watched like a few of your games for sure. And for a team in a transition phase, any team in like a growth phase, being the keeper for that team can be sort of like really brutal game in, game out. Like you are the one sometimes bearing the brunt of that transition. Either you're taking a bunch of shots or you have to have an even shorter memory than a keeper normally does. I personally have no idea how any keeper stays alive in any situation, so I don't know how you do it. But for you, what did you do to try and prepare for that situation, knowing sort of we're going to have a tough year, like we're not going to go undefeated or like some magical situation. We're going to have our ups and downs, and I probably am going to give up goals. Like, how did you prepare for that situation of, I've maybe been on a bunch of winning teams before. This may not be like that, and my stats may not be like shiny as hell. Like, how did you prepare for that yourself?
It's a good question. In the beginning of the season, and once we finally knew about the D1 change, Sheila had basically a heart-to-heart with the team saying, like, we're going to do our best. We will be much harder to get the stats and the rankings that we've had in the past. And like, honestly, like I haven't lost this many times in a long time. And so it's definitely been a challenge to wrap my head around. And, but I think it's a huge testament to like we really pride ourselves in how supportive our team is. And so there's never been a moment this season where I've thought, oh, like it's just my fault. Like it's
right.
Even if there's that little part of your brain that says you could have saved that, or that like we should have avoided that goal, or that was a dumb goal.
Right.
Like, I have Al here, and I have the back line and my fellow goalkeepers to like lift me up in those spots, and so it's been a challenge for sure. And it like will be a challenge. We'll keep working on it, but I think I've wonderful goalkeeper coach Peter. He's spent a lot of time with the goalies this year talking about mindfulness and really thinking about the successes you've had. Mm-hmm. And so that's been super helpful for me because it's really easy to step back and just think about all of the challenges you've faced and not think about all the good things you're doing too. And so this has sure been a growth year, and we've had lots of successes, even if our records haven't necessarily shown it yet.
Right. And I should say, too, I didn't include in my answer, the reason I noticed you in those games is because you had times where you were just balling out. I mean, like, there were early games against, like, was it the Northern Iowa game? Like, I think I saw you play the Turbo. I think I don't know. I've watched, like, a number of you guys' games, and it's noticeable. A keeper is one of those players where, like, when they stick out because a save is, like, so dramatic and everyone's looking and it's at the ball. And so it's kind of hard to miss a standout keeper when they have a good game. And so you've had some really strong games. I know at least one player of the week honor, right? So like you, at least you have little, like you said, moments of success that the team has had where it really does keep you going. Like that first Summit League win, I was so psyched for you guys. I'm like, yeah, man, you have to get the first one. Right. And Alex, you were in such a unique role too, I think, as, you know, being a veteran and having to provide leadership. A lot of the time, part of that role is being the one who can say, we've been here before, this is what it's like, blah, 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 except you are in a historically unique situation where literally no one has been there before, not just on your team, but anywhere.
Right.
No one has made this jump before. You all have not played these Summit League teams or even these non-conference teams. Everything is new, but there's still this like veteran role you have to play of like supporting your teammates, creating an ecosystem, all that kind of stuff. I mean, what has that been like for you trying to be walking into the locker room and saying, I need to provide this leadership, but also so much of this is unknown to all of us, including the coaching staff, frankly.
Right. No, I mean, yeah, it's definitely a unique role, like stepping into a leadership position in a transition that no team has ever done. So there's a lot of just like little things that changed, like just more times in locker rooms and out of states, and we're like, oh no, we need a speaker. Just like things like that you never even think about, that we have to like constantly adjust for like just this new era. But on top of that, just the bigger things too. I think that the big thing was that we knew we could control, like, if anything, our culture and our chemistry, and keep that alive. And that is something that like our team really prides itself in, more than a lot of other teams. We keep it no drama, and we all like just really genuinely enjoy spending time together. So I think that our huge goal this season was to make sure we could keep that like positive, supportive atmosphere alive, coming off of different losses, and just being able to shake them off and just still be together as a team.
Right. Like control what you can control kind of thing of like, most of this is out of our control. What can we control? I love the idea of like, damn, we need like a speaker in this locker room. I love like the small dramas of like, how the hell are we going to get amped before this game?
Right. Right after we're like flying everywhere, and it's just been, there's random things that have been so different.
I mean, it is true, especially the MIAC, especially not just D3, but the MIAC is like a pretty compact footprint. Like I played D3 and then for 3 years like kicked on a D3 football team, and I was driving like 11 hours to games. It didn't make any sense, but we were driving that far. And like you all were like around the metro, a couple hours away, and then like you said, you're jumping to flying. But we will get to road trips later. I have a question related to road trips, so do not spoil any of this content. I will take a quick break to say this week's episode is brought to you by Pence Homes. Pence Homes is a real estate team with Keller Williams. I personally have experience working with Nate and Lydia when we sold our house and moved into this house I'm in right now last fall. Nate has been a supporter of the local soccer community, including as an owner of the Minnesota women's soccer team, which is soon to announce their final name. Everyone pay attention. I also enjoyed working with one of their preferred lenders, Angie Shear with Luminate Financing. If any viewers or listeners have questions about houses, whether selling, buying, need a furnace, need flooring, shoot them a message. Go to pencehomes.com. It's in the show notes. It is scrolling across your screen. You cannot miss it. Okay. Now, Olivia, let's be real. Who cares about soccer? Let's talk about some real shit. And by that, I mean baking. You are into baking and you have some content, girl. Okay, so for those who do not know, and I don't know how they wouldn't, you are on Insta at OG Bakes, and there is a ton of great content on that thing. I don't know how it hasn't blown up, frankly. High quality pictures, some video content as well. Go back, tell us where this started, because there's actually, you've been doing this a while, because there's a lot of stuff on there.
Yeah. Gosh, I started it quite a while ago, and then I don't know if it was my like late middle school of like, oh no, I'm so suddenly self-conscious about this Instagram account, and I stopped posting. Yes. And then last year I was cooking and baking so much during quarantine. And I've had friends joke and be like, start posting again. Like we know you're doing it. So eventually I just started posting again, because I have been cooking the entire time. I just didn't post about it. And then it's been really fun to, I don't know. I got my brother got a camera for Christmas for 2 years ago. So I took his camera, and then it's been really fun to like try to take nice pictures now. And
Right.
Yeah, so it's been fun.
I've enjoyed it. I was scrolling it earlier today. I did enjoy the random shout outs. So like where you got ingredients, like shout outs to the Excelsior Kowalskis. I used to live 2 blocks from a Kowalski's, so I was recognizing that rep. Nice job by you. But also I used to work at a home food company that I'm sure your grandmothers are huge fans of. It was called Tastefully Simple, and it's like a home party company. And I produced all of their cooking videos. So Olivia, this is live on the record. I'm offering you right now, Equal Time will produce like a baking cooking show that you are the star of if you're game. Right now, offers being made.
I think that sounds real awesome. Honestly, my life is so crazy right now, which is why I haven't posted since the first day of school. I've got content lined up, but I have yet to figure out the rest of it.
We will not attempt to make the show during the season. I'm not that crazy. we will find downtime, but if you are game, for those who are not like tried and true, watch everything Equal Time produces. I did, even remotely during COVID, produced a cooking show that Sophia Bowman and Katie Duong did last spring because they had a shared food Instagram account called Kitchen Somethings, and I'm forgetting, and clearly I'm a great booster of their account. But they Certified Kitchen Freaks is the account. Look at that. I remembered. So we have a history of supporting cooking players. So you are ready to rock. We will be in touch about that. Alex, on a non-baking note, you are an economics major, which I am personally as, if not more, interested in than baking. Talk to us about what you're interested in doing with that degree, or if you don't want to, you are fully allowed to bring up another side passion and ignore academics, because you notice I did not talk to Olivia about academics. So you can choose your own adventure. You can either talk economics, which I'm actually very game to talk about, or you can side hustle us right now.
Okay. Well, unfortunately, I don't really have a lot of side hustles, so I'll stick to my degree. Yeah. But no, I'm a public policy economics major, and I don't have a set plan for graduation, but I think my goal would just to be able to work with local policy in Minnesota, help community reform and government policy, whatnot. So been dabbling, trying to figure out what I'm going to do next. But yeah.
Alex, you are talking to someone who until 3 weeks ago worked for your city council member. I'm ready to rock. Put me to work.
Oh,
this is perfect. This is people rightfully have no idea what I do in my non-soccer time, but that is what I do. So this is great. So now clearly you both are going to be very heavily featured in Equal Time channels in the future. That's great. Well, and how did you, Alex, how did you get into that space? Or was it something where you took some classes that caught your interest, or how did you first get interested in public policy?
Yeah, well, I had no idea what I wanted to do going into college. I still kind of feel like I don't, but I chose econ specifically because I was interested in government and government decisions and whatnot. But I really settled in on public policy by my junior year. I think that just with the pandemic and everything going on in St. Paul, I was like, okay, yes, there's so much community local reform that we can do, and I now saw that as more of an option for what I could do with my life and be more interested in, and really became interested on that local level. So yeah, I think by junior year, I was like, yes.
That's great. I love it. And I also love the vibe. This is a message to we have a lot of teen viewers, obviously. A lot of teenagers watch my shows. We know that. If they're watching, they can know that you can go to college not knowing what you want to do. Full support. So don't worry. I mean, exactly. You do need to eventually choose, but go in wide open for sure. Again, this is to all of our teenage viewers, of which there are so many. You guys both know that. So you guys spoke to this earlier. I I didn't realize how next level the like team only, like selfless, we support each other, no individual focus went. I went in just to try and do basic research on your stats. I think you might be, I mean, I can't claim this is actually true, but I think you might be the only team in the country that doesn't even list who started. So every stat sheet in the world is like games started, games played. There's not even a column for games started on your team, which I think might be unique. I've never seen that before. So y'all are full on team only. And I was sort of joking with Olivia before we started recording that last week or a couple weeks ago when Lexi Huber and Abby Brantner were on the show, they were so blindly, sunshiningly positive about St. Thomas soccer that it was like I was dying watching that show because they were like so positive about like bleeding purple, like through and through. But there are so many cues here that I think it is kind of real with your team. But for you two that have played at, you know, super competitive clubs, competitive high schools, like multiple settings, all these different teams, all these different coaches, what are some of the ways that sort of really aggressively team first vibe has made the situation different for you sort of day in and day out? Not in like the big picture, like how we talk about ourselves kind of way, but like how does that change your experience day to day in terms of, wow, this culture really is different because X? You can, and either of you can start. I should have actually thrown it to you.
Well, yeah, I mean, totally honestly, my team that I grew up on playing club with, most of us had played together like basically our whole lives. So I was really fortunate in that aspect that we were a no drama team, team first, and had like a really amazing culture. But I think that made me realize how important that was to me. And I think if I had gone to a program that was less team oriented, I would have really been in shock. So I think that just made like the transition for me and my decision to come to St. Thomas. Like I was just so much more sure in my decision. And by the end of my freshman season, I knew I'd made the right choice just because that really is what happens. Everyone is so loving and supportive. And I just think like, especially coming in as like an intimidated freshman starting your collegiate career, to have that support from everyone on the team is just like really nice.
Right. Olivia, what about you?
I'd agree. I mean, I've had my fair share of drama in lots of teams in different avenues of my life. But like being here in college where my team is literally my family here, I mean, I probably take it for granted for how well we get along together. I mean, like people on the team, like people feed each other and people live together, and like we literally spend so much time together that and I've heard stories of girls who transferred and girls who are at different schools who have not had the same experience, and so it's pretty eye-opening to hear those stories, because it's like holy cow, like we have it really good here, and that like it makes the experience so much better, and I don't have that added stress of I don't have to worry about I love spending time with my teammates. I don't have to worry about my coaches or my teammates, and that it's not an added stress. And I think it makes us have more fun and probably do better because of it.
Yeah. Well, and I do think there's this element of you have to trust the coaches enough to trust that they're telling you accurately what the program is like. Mm-hmm. You know, you have to, in that recruiting process, there's all this variability. It's like, okay, I might be choosing when I'm 16, and am I really capable at 16 of knowing what I need at 22? And like, just as a human being, do I know what I need at 22 when I'm at 15 or 16? And then is the adult person across the table from me like telling me enough of the truth that I know what the culture is? So yeah, Olivia, what you said really sticks out, and like you and Alex both say, it's just having this no drama environment of everyone that's really supportive. It's like you don't really know till you get there. I mean, like you can't really know because no coach is gonna say like we're kind of messy, like, and frankly, existing players might not say it either. Like, I don't know how many campus visits you all did, but I'm assuming players all just sort of like boil down what they say all the like. I'm assuming no one's spilling like hardcore tea when you're on a campus visit, right?
Depends on who you go to.
Did you had some good ones?
I went on my fair share of campus visits, and you can kind of get a vibe of like
Right.
whether or not they give you the opportunity to ask those deep questions.
Right.
I mean, thankfully, I know like Mari, who's a senior on the team. She went to my high school, and so she's delightful. She's a delightful human being. So I knew that like she would not be in this environment if it wasn't positive. And so that was like a sure sign for me of like, it'll be good here.
As long as you have like one trusted source, then you know it can't be bullshit. Yeah, for sure. Well, and I'm also curious, to be honest. I mean, we talked at the beginning of the show about when both of you first started considering that jump from D3 to D1. And I know, Alex, I chatted with you, forever ago about that. But I'm super curious about, when you heard that and you started in your head having these assumptions about like, I need to do X, or it's going to be like Y, or, oh my God, we're going to face Z. Like, what are some of those things that maybe came true and maybe didn't come true that sort of you invented in your head, that which sort of things ended up being really true or even more true than you thought? And which things were you like, oh, that wasn't the situation at all? And Alex, let's go with you first, because you've already had to basically talk about this.
Yes. Well, I mean, there was a ton of excitement hearing about it. Also a ton of, oh my God, that's really scary. So yeah, I think that me a few years back was just really nervous about this season. Like, oh my gosh, am I just going to feel like I'm dead like every single day? Like, am I just going to be so additionally tired? And like, is it going to be so much more intense, but just in a way that like my body hurts a lot more, and my like mentally just stressed. But so that was definitely like a fear, and also just knowing that we're not going to have an amazing record our first year, and I was just wondering like what that was going to look like and how that was going to feel coming off of so many losses after being on a team that's so used to winning. And that was definitely a concern of mine. But I really think that like I have been overwhelmingly like pleasantly surprised by this whole season. The intensity level has of course picked up, but not in a way where I think that we've talked about like our team culture has gone down, or like added stress into my life. I don't feel a ton of added stress. Like, I feel like it was just such a smoother transition than I could have hoped for, which has been great. And on top of that, like knowing we're losing, but we are really competing in a lot of these games. And and I don't think our record necessarily reflects that, which is just soccer. But to know that like we are still in a lot of these fights and we're doing just better than I thought we could do our first year, which has just been awesome.
It's also, I think I'll jump in and say one thing before we kick to Olivia, which is it's worth noting that at all levels of D1, so like in the Big Ten, like which I watch a ton of covering the Gophers or whatever, like a third of all Division I teams like park the bus, play defense, and then counterattack. Like it's truly almost like a third. Like it is very much a regular choice that programs make for decades, not just when they're brand new. Like they do it forever. And I will say, like, it is actually really, really cool. Like when we had Sheila on the show earlier this fall, and when I've watched you all play, yes, you end up defending a lot when you're maybe on paper overmatched. Like maybe you end up having to defend a lot, but you are not, like St. Thomas is not parking. Like you are attacking, you are playing both ways. And one thing Sheila mentioned, for those who don't know, Sheila McNeil, the head coach of St. Thomas, for those who don't know, she said like it's not fun to only defend, and so we're never going to only defend. Like that's a really, I'm paraphrasing her because she doesn't curse as much as me, it's a really shitty thing to have to tell a team to be like, get ready to defend for 80 minutes of this game and we'll counterattack for 90 seconds 5 times. Like That's an impossible thing to ask women to do for 90 minutes the entire fall. And so I will say, to your point, Alex, of like, sure, the record doesn't look great. It's because you probably could have squeaked out a few more wins if you parked, if you just sat behind the ball and you only countered and you only did corner kicks and you only did set pieces. But it actually has been kind of fun to watch you in games. Like I remember watching, I think it was like the Green Bay game or something. Like there are games where you end up losing because you create space because you are attacking, but it's still sort of worth it in the long run because you're developing that sort of attacking mindset, that like you're not just a team who sits. Because I think it's really underrated like how many programs sit forever, like as a permanent choice. It's like a lot of, and you all have seen it in the Summit League, I'm sure, but it's like it is for real. Olivia, how about you? After I rambled, which things held true for you of sort of your assumptions of what the jump would be, and which things sort of ended up being a lot different?
I guess I didn't have a great idea of what this season would look like. It was a lot of, we're just going to do it and hope for the best. But I think coming from my first year, which the theme of my first year was definitely like, this isn't what it's normally like, but we're making it work.
Right.
But that's just how it was. And so it wasn't any different for me. So I think I would have a better like comparison of what a normal season would look like. And so this year being pretty different than last year, it's very different. But it's also just been super exciting. Like when we first found out we were going to scrimmage the U, it was like, I wonder if we're actually going to do that. Like that's incredible. Like that's a big time to Minnesota D1 schools. That's never happened before. That's super cool. And so when we actually got to do it, it was like, holy cow, we're actually doing this. We're really jumping off the deep end here, really diving right into it. And it was a wonderful experience. Like it was cool that we got to do that. And so, I mean, I've definitely, we're, as Al mentioned, like we're doing a lot of things that we've never done before, traveling and facing challenges and dealing with random snafus that happen with apparel and all that fun stuff. But,
so you didn't have in your mind that like, oh no, every keeper at D1 is like 6 feet tall and I need to be like a like Olympic level high jumper type athlete to play this position. You didn't have like those level of hysteria fears? There's
definitely self-doubt. And I definitely like still deal with self-doubt, but I mean, I train with like one of the goalies that I've trained with for years. She's a Summit League goalie. And so I knew like, we've trained with each other for years. I have good friends. One of my friends who I used to train with, she's a Brown goalie. Like I've been with these girls. And so if I can keep up with them, then I can make it work here.
Right. Well, and keeping is also so nuts because like there are so many keepers where they won't necessarily get like the shutouts or the clean sheets, and so they won't get recognition. But like the shot stopping or the save percentage, things that maybe are more more explain like an individual's abilities. Like there's plenty of keepers who play super well but don't get like an undefeated season or like 12 clean sheets in a year or something. So it's like you all are already more resilient than I would ever be. So we don't need to dive too deep into that. You're already like a hardcore warrior. So the last question, and you both have hinted at this before, we are going to jump in and ask a little bit about the new opponents and the new road trip. So 2 questions to finish this bad boy off, and then you can both actually live your lives after the show. So the first one is, you both have mentioned like flying to different places, so many different road trips. So what has been your favorite road trip to go on this year? Because so many of these are probably a first. And Alex, you have to answer first because you're older, so Olivia gets more time to think. You can say multiple places too. Alex might be frozen.
He might be frozen.
Olivia, now you do by default have to answer first.
Road trips. We've had quite a few memorable ones.
Okay, well, first of all, first of all, it should be noted you can't just like say that and then not. So now you have to describe what made them memorable.
Ooh, lost Al.
She'll come back. Alex will. For those who are listening to this as a podcast, Alex is gone, but she will come back.
Yeah, I'm looking. I'd say. I mean, last weekend was definitely one for the memory books. We had our flight delayed, and then we missed our connecting flight, and so we stayed in the hotel.
Yeah.
And then we got another flight in the morning, and then took a bus to Oral Roberts. And then we played, and then we take another bus to UMKC. So just all like the random travel was I mean, it was really fun. We've dealt with a lot of weird stuff like that, but there's definitely like a ton of memories involved because of all the weird stuff that kept happening.
Yes.
And how we deal with it. So that, I mean, it was we also got a double-decker bus, not double-decker, bunk bed bus, a sleeping bus, and that was a game changer.
Wait. I don't know that I've ever been on one of these. What trip was this for?
This was last weekend. We when we drove from Oral Roberts from Tulsa to Kansas City, Missouri, and then we got to drive the 6-hour drive home in the bus.
So your drive home was in the bunk bus?
Both of them. So we had like a 4-hour drive and then a 6-hour drive. And so it's like normal. It looks like a normal bus seats.
Okay.
But you can flip them. You can flip the bottom down so that you have like platform, and you can flip the side up. And so it's just like this. So people were sitting on top and people were underneath.
Wow. And I will tell you, absolutely no one came to this show to hear me talk about Amtrak trains, but I will say Amtrak roomettes are like that, where it's 2 chairs and then you flatten the bottom into a bed and there's a bed above. Again, no one gives a shit, but I am telling people. But that is, first of all, that's unreal. I don't know that I've ever heard someone talk about using a bunk bus. That is great. Alex, you were gone for a minute, and Olivia talked about the wonderful hopscotching road trip you had to KC. So you are now not allowed to use the Kansas City trip. But, and by the way, you, as much as Olivia, we talked about Lexi and Abby being sunshine and rainbows, you did just talk about a really bonkers kind of challenging trip as being your favorite. So you are also an optimist. So you are also Alex, what would your favorite road trip or road trips be from this year?
Oh my gosh. Oh, that's a hard question. I think our first, correct me if I'm wrong, but okay, we went to Washington, and I think that was our first like long weekend maybe. So we were there for like 5 days, and it was a bit long, but that was probably my favorite just because it was like the first one of the year. And again, like there's always chaos when our team travels. Like I think we have the least amount of luck with traveling. It's hilarious, but just like there wasn't a ton going on in Washington. It was maybe a little less cool than we expected, but to like all be able to be together for like 5 days, and I just like got to know my freshman roommate that I was with like even better than before, and I feel like it was just like a huge bonding experience for everyone. Like we just came back and we're way closer just because we had been together, like literally together always for 5 days in a row. So that was probably my favorite.
Yeah, that is the part. Wait, Olivia, what were you gonna say?
For the record, I was in Al's room for part of that time, so
okay,
we had a positive impact on that rooming experience.
You're saying that
Yes.
part of the reason we're good is because of you. That's great. I like that.
Definitely.
That credit claiming. Olivia, you need to be confident off your line. You need to be confident in claiming credit. That's good. We need you to be a strong keeper. So that's good. And lastly, last question is, you obviously have had a ton of battles this year. You haven't played every single Summit League team quite yet. You have a couple of games left, but the Summit League is a battle every game, even though, there's still the same sort of tiered nature that there is in every conference. You also had plenty of tough opponents in the non-conference. for you two, each of you, sort of, who has been the toughest team and the toughest game for you all this year in terms of, how hard it was in that moment? And Alex, if you're there, we'll make you go first again because Olivia has to go first.
Yeah. I mean, obviously playing the U is a challenge, but I won't even say that just because that was like a preseason scrimmage and that was for 10 out of the 11 girls on our team, our first game at D1 ever. Right. I think that we dealt with the most adversity in South Dakota and struggle there, but credit to FCSU and USD. I think they came out really hard and we did not come out hard enough. I think they were both really solid teams and they gave us a good game, both just really fast, really aggressive, and we're always just like pushing, like shoving the ball down our throats. So yeah.
Olivia, how about you?
Yeah, honestly, it's hard to pinpoint because we've had a lot of like really close games and we've had games that have been like mentally challenging, whether it's because we're either playing super well and it's just not dropping the way we want it to. And it's like, okay, just keep pushing because we're so close, but and we might not have gotten the results we wanted. But I'm trying to think of like a specific.
Well, and that dynamic is so common in college soccer, especially because it's such a grind. The idea of like, even if run of play is going well, you're not scoring and you're not winning. That is like such a college soccer challenge of like, I'm sure it exists at other levels too, but college soccer with 2 games a week, games and classes, you're wearing down every week. It's this absolute battle. That is, to me, is like such a stereotypical college soccer challenge of like, why can't we just score? Like, we're playing well. Why can't we win? Yeah. Is it so? Could you name one then, or did I interrupt you as you were about to?
I think. Well, I'm trying to think. I distinctly remember I think it might have been our first, like Al. I think it might have been our first South Dakota game, USD, where we like lost like 4 of our back line.
Sure.
For various things, and everyone that got put back there crushed it. They're working super hard, and so. But it was definitely like, oh gosh, we've lost 4 defenders at the moment, so we're just piecing it together. Everyone's just doing their best and busting their butt, but it wasn't necessarily an ideal situation.
Well, that's so hard because South Dakota is also a really solid team. Like there are teams in the Summit League that are slightly more battleable, and then there are teams like South Dakota where they're always solid, and so like every game is going to be really hard. So it's just like really impossible. Yeah, that is crazy. Well, you two have given way too much of your time to us. Thank you so much. Olivia Graupmann, Alex Balfour, and you all have 2 games left, right? So what are your next 2 games? And they're both at home. So folks can come check them out on the South Field at the St. Thomas campus, which is actually a really nice venue for watching soccer. If folks haven't been there. I've been to a number of games this year, but for safety, we'll have Olivia name the next 2 games just in case Alex cuts out. But Alex, you've been a saint being on the show and reconnecting multiple times. But who are those next 2 opponents and when are the games?
We've got UND tomorrow at 3:30 South Field. Yeah. And then NDSU is our senior day, 1:00. So it'll be a good one.
Everyone come out for Alex. Like, shout out.
Yeah.
Like, give out for the seniors. And by the way, that North Dakota game should be one of the – North Dakota's had kind of a – they've been battling through the fall, same as you guys. This would be – I can say it. You all aren't allowed to say it. This would be one of the better opportunities for a St. Thomas win. So it should be a really good battle. If folks have watched us because they're Gopher fans, you've seen North Dakota in the preseason. We played them in, you've seen them play before. There's roughly 1 million Minnesotans on that roster. So there's like tons of ties to Minnesota. Olivia Graupmann and a badass keeper in the back for St. Thomas. Alex Balfour, stud veteran defender outside back. Although I liked you at center back too, Alex. I'm not sure where you've been playing now. but both of you have been so great for the Tommies this year in a historic first ever jump from D3 to D1. Thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for having